Hey folks, Thomas Tao. I'm here at the VinePair office in New York City, and today we're looking at Joseph Magnus Cigar Blend Bourbon, the bourbon designed to be enjoyed with a cigar. But before we get into that, my full description with much more detailed tasting notes, I go in depth. It's like really detailed, is in the link in the description below. Also, make sure you subscribe to VinePair on YouTube, the very digital platform we're presenting to you on today. It is the future already. Okay, Joseph Magnus Cigar Blend Bourbon comes from Joseph A. Magnus Company. They source whiskeys, they finish them in a mix of sherry and cognac barrels, and that's their kind of baseline blend, the Joseph A. Magnus Bourbon. This is a couple tiers up. It's Joseph A. Magnus Bourbon that's then blended with 11 and 18-year-old bourbon, and after all that's done, it's finished in Armagnac casks. So yeah, there's a bit of a process behind it. This is bottled and blended in Holland, Michigan. Shout out to Western Michigan. This bottle will set you back a cool $300. Now, a few years ago, this was a $175 bottle. Now it's $300. This is the tippy top of the line, the Cadillac of offerings that Joseph Magnus releases. Today, we're looking at bottle number 14 from batch 204. They release dozens of batches a year. They've actually upped the pace of release. So let's see if it holds up to that quality. And is this bold enough to pair with a cigar? I'm not gonna smoke on camera. I think that creates different YouTube parameters. So we're just gonna enjoy this neat and see how it tastes. And we'll imagine that we might be enjoying a cigar with this at a different date. Let's pop this open. Ooh. Artificial cork, I actually dig that. I like to go with the artificial cork because you don't want to open a $300 bottle of bourbon and have the cork break on you. So actually a big fan of that. Ooh, hear that? Whiskey ASMR, love it. All right, let's nose this. Does it smell like a $300 bourbon? I don't know. There's no like baseline. We don't actually have that scale. Maybe I should make that scale. I get lemon peel and baking spice kind of together, and then it gets fruitier. Yeah, so this is a bourbon that is meant to hold up to drinking with a cigar. We are trying it neat today. I've also tried this with a little bit of water, and the nose is robust. Like, this is a strong bourbon. That lemon peel note is really interesting. The baking spice, it kind of coalesces into like a fruitcake, but those store-bought fruitcakes that come in those dense bricks where you really have to like press down on the knife to get through. It opens up a little bit, and there is a tobacco element that's actually in the nosing notes that the brand provides. They say all these batches kind of have a tobacco element to pair with the cigars. There's not tobacco in this, they just smell like tobacco. And that's not wrong here, but for this batch 204, it actually smells like leather and paper, like you're walking into an old library. Like in college, when you go to the level in the library that no one's been in for years and it's like dusty and you're finding this obscure book. Yeah, it smells like that. Okay, this is one I noticed that really stuck out to me. Like, you stick your schnoz way down in there. It has this like burnt chocolate smell. Like you melted a chocolate bar or a bunch of chocolate bars in a saucepan and you let it sit for a little too long. It's not a bad smell, but it's like slightly burnt chocolate. All right, let's taste it. And tobacco is like a little bit light on the nose. There's more of that leather-bound book. I have many leather-bound books. That tobacco is there on the mouth. There is a heavy tobacco note here. It's tannic, it's oaky, and the tobacco kind of evolves into some dark fruits like black currants, figs, dates, those chewy, sweet fruits, a little bit of apple, red delicious apple. Red delicious apple, not my favorite apple to eat, but I like it when my whiskey tastes like it. Weird. I didn't detect a ton of Armagnac influence on the nose, but I'm definitely getting it on the mouth with those dark fruits, with some of that sweetness. I'm getting those brandy elements. There's also a note of like burnt pecans and brown sugar. My mom growing up used to make this sweet potato casserole for the holidays, and she would put this crumble on top, and then she'd cook brown sugar and toasted chopped pecans with it. It tastes a little bit like that, maybe without the butter. The mouthfeel, it's not quite as viscous as I was expecting and not quite as thick as I remember from memory, but the flavors hold up here. On the mouth, this is a bourbon that leans into the tannic, the leathery, the tobacco, the oaky. There are fruit elements, but it's not particularly bright, and that's not really the point of Joseph Magnus Cigar Blend. Okay, I like the finish to start. It's bold, it's robust. I could imagine this with food. I could imagine this with dessert. I could imagine this with a cigar, but the finish starts up here, and you kind of expect it to go like this. but it kind of goes like this. It just drops off a little too quickly for me. And it's not like sour, it's not like super bitter, but it just doesn't gradually dissipate into that like lengthy finish that lulls you into a sense of comfort like I kind of want for a bourbon with this flavor profile. So for me, the nose, pretty good. The palate, actually quite good. The finish, decent, just drops off a little faster than I would have liked. This knocks it down a couple points for me. It's still very good. And look, this varies from batch to batch, right? There's gonna be some variation. This one I enjoyed. The finish, not quite up to that very good palate. I gave this a 93 out of 100. This is a whiskey I'd be happy to drink in just about any setting, with a cigar, with food, or without. I will say though, $300, it's setting a very high mark for itself. I think it delivers impactful flavor. It's up to you whether it's actually worth that. I'm not gonna make that value judgment for you. It's not my money, but a really, really flavorful bourbon. I wanna know what you think. Let me know if you've ever had Joseph Magnus Cigar Blend. If you have a favorite batch, let me know. Oh, and you can let me know in the comments below. Especially let me know if you just disagree with my take, or if you think I have a very punchable face. Let me know that in the comments below. This has been a review of Joseph Magnus Cigar Blend Bourbon. For VinePair.com, I'm David Thomas Tao. Thanks for tuning in.